Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought that I would talk about this Deontay Wilder topic. This has been one of the only topics that I have at least found somewhat interesting to talk about within the past week. So, I apologize that I have not posted as much this week. I just did not find that very many interesting conversations this week. So, I thought that, I would talk about a couple of conversations. One of the conversations that I posted this week, I think I posted it yesterday, was the Canelo Alvarez Demetrius Andrade situation. And right now we're going to talk about the Deontay Wilder situation. Now, for those of you that have recently subscribed to my channel and thumbs up the videos and overall watch my channel, and I appreciate that very, very much. I thank all the recent support that I've gotten. I appreciate it very, very much. You probably know that some of the main fighters that I talk about tend to be Saul Canelo Alvarez, or maybe a Terrence Crawford, or maybe, an Errol Spence Jr. I talk a little bit about him. But there was a fighter that I actually used to talk about quite a bit last year that I did a certain amount of videos on. And a certain amount of my videos usually pertain to conversations to where I think that certain channels will try to post certain delusional ramblings or overall certain propaganda, and one fan base that has tried to do this has been the Deontay Wilder fan base. And you can check out some of my old videos from last year when I kind of restarted doing videos and kind of did a new channel, because I used to have an older channel several years ago. But when it comes down to it overall, I did a bunch of videos on Deontay Wilder last year and on this alleged cheating scandal with Tyson Fury and all sort of stuff. Bottom line is this: do I believe that Tyson Fury cheated Deontay Wilder? No, personally, I do not. I think Tyson Fury just completely beat Deontay Wilder dominantly, because I think Deontay Wilder has a lot of faults in his style. And this is not to disrespect Deontay Wilder, but he kind of is a one-trick pony type of fighter. And a certain amount of people may disagree, but Deontay Wilder has never really been known for his A-class boxing skills. He's been really known as an A-class athlete. And I'm not going to say that he has zero skills when it comes down to it, but when it comes down to it, he does not have an A-grade boxing skill set, never really has. But here's the thing: recently with this Deontay Wilder topic, apparently Deontay Wilder has now changed trainers, he's changed corners, he's changed coaches, which I find very interesting. Apparently he's going to be, I believe, trained or coached under Malik Scott. Might even be a couple of others in there. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. But either way, from what I'm hearing, and I know that he got rid of Mark Breland quite a while ago because he thought that Mark Breland was a quote-unquote crab in the bucket, basically a traitor, is what he alleges. Personally, do I believe that Deontay Wilder believes in these excuses of Tyson Fury cheated me and all sort of bullshit? Do I think that Deontay Wilder believes that? I'm not necessarily sure if he does. I think that if he really truly would have believed those allegations, I think he would have responded to it much earlier than what he actually did. For those of you that don't remember or that don't know, these allegations have been going on for months and months and months. I mean, literally, the Tyson Fury cheating allegations from the Deontay Wilder fans and the LDBC new media channels, that's been going on for I don't know how many months. That's been going on ever since a week after the fight happened. And it took Deontay Wilder so long to comment on that. And that kind of sends me the message that you don't really 100% truly believe in those allegations. But Deontay Wilder isn't really going to say that for his fan base, because he needs to save face when it comes down to it, because he looked like a complete idiot right now if he were to backtrack on his words. But I think Deontay Wilder changing corners and changing trainers, I think that's basically Deontay Wilder admitting to himself that certain things do need to change when it comes down to it. And I agree. I do think certain things need to change. And we're going to talk about that today. Do I think that changing trainers and changing corners is a good idea? Do I think it's a bad idea? What do I think his chances are of facing a top contender next? What do I think his chances are of beating some of these top contenders next? And what are his chances against a Tyson Fury or an Anthony Joshua? Because those are the two big fish in that heavyweight division as of right now. So let's just get into it. So first of all, do I think that it was necessary for Deontay Wilder to change corners? Do I think that it was a good thing that he changed corners? I think it was a step in the right direction, personally, if you ask me. Some people may not agree with that. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of people that disagree with Deontay Wilder getting a new trainer or a new coach, but there might be some people overall that believe that Deontay Wilder should stick with what originally got him there, which would have been the Mark Breland JD's combination. Personally, I think JD's and Mark Breland took Deontay Wilder to a certain level. And that level is a very good level, even great level, if you want to say that. That is a level to where I think he's one of the top 3 heavyweights in the world, maybe even potentially the second best heavyweight in the world, even though I can't officially say that because I've always kind of had Anthony Joshua ahead of him because of his accomplishments or resume. And as of right now, I still have to have Anthony Joshua ahead of him. But if that fight were to actually happen, even if Deontay Wilder didn't change corners, let's say he didn't change his style at all, an Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder fight, that would be a 50-50 fight. If I were to favor somebody, I would probably favor Anthony Joshua. But when it comes down to it, Deontay Wilder, he does have that A-grade power. And if he hits Anthony Joshua, which I can assure you most likely he probably would, there's a very decent chance that he could knock Anthony Joshua out or that he could very badly hurt him and Deontay Wilder could make it a shorter night than usual. So it is what it is. And Anthony Joshua, it is not impossible to hit him. It is not impossible to hurt him when it comes down to it. So it is what it is. I think even old Deontay Wilder might have possibly stood a chance against Anthony Joshua. But after the way that he lost to Tyson Fury in that second match, I mean, he didn't just get beat. He got completely beat down. He got completely beaten up in that fight against Tyson Fury. I do think that something needed to change. And I think getting rid of Mark Breland and JD's, some people may disagree with it. I personally think that it's a step in the right direction. I think at this point in time in his career, where Deontay Wilder's taking a look at it and a certain amount of people take a look at it and it's like, okay, well, do you want to be at a very great level, and be the second or the third best heavyweight in the world? Or do you want to try and adapt your style and debatably become the best heavyweight in the world? Because if Deontay Wilder, let's say somehow he does pick things up, let's say somehow he does end up gaining a certain amount of new skills, he could potentially become the best heavyweight in the world because Deontay Wilder has that once-in-a-lifetime type of athleticism. Deontay Wilder is just a very gifted athlete. He's pretty decently speedy. Obviously, he has that amazing power. One of the hardest hitting heavyweights of all time. One of the hardest hitting fighters of all time, period, when it comes down to it. But if you were to ask me, do I believe that Deontay Wilder, is going to pick up a certain amount of new skills? I don't know. I mean, I've seen, and you can go ahead and take a look at the sparring footage. It's on FightHype.com or FightHype on the YouTube channel. Y'all can go ahead and check that out. If you just had to ask me realistically, do I think that Deontay Wilder is going to pick up a certain amount of these new boxing tricks? I think he'll try to implement a couple of them. I think overall that he'll try to implement them for sure. But how successful is he going to be with doing this? I'm not really sure. I think that Deontay Wilder really at this point in time in his career, we'll have to see how he does against some of these top contenders. This corner change, I think, could do good for Deontay Wilder. It also could do bad for him because and some people may disagree. Some people may look at this and say, well, I don't see how it can do any negative for Deontay Wilder because he's always going to have that athleticism. Well, if he tries to fight in a different type of style than what he originally did, it might be a little bit of a negative for him. Deontay Wilder, who knows, maybe he'll be a little bit more tentative to throw from now on ever since that beatdown that he had against Tyson Fury. I don't know necessarily what he's going to do. If I had to guess, I think Deontay Wilder is still going to retain a certain amount of his aggression. So if Deontay Wilder, let's say he were to face Dillian White next, or if he were to face Andrew Ruiz next, I would favor Deontay Wilder in those fights. But if he were to somehow end up losing those fights, I would not be overly shocked, especially since of a corner change. You never really know how a fighter is going to be once they change corners. Even with some of the best trainers, sometimes certain fighters, may not always improve when it comes down to it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Deontay Wilder is. Now, if we had to talk about, do I believe Deontay Wilder is going to go in there next with a very high top contender? I don't see that. Personally, I think Deontay Wilder, he's probably going to go in there with someone like a Charles Martin or someone who's not really very high level. And I don't really have a problem with that for his next fight because the man hasn't fought in over a year when it comes down to it. And on top of that, man, I mean, when you lose the way that he did in that Tyson Fury rematch, I think that you really kind of need to pump the brakes and you kind of need to say, okay, what can I do to improve? You need to go back to the drawing board. And Deontay Wilder seems to be taking those steps. But I think that I think he needs to take his time with this. I don't think going in there straight with a Dillian White or an Andrew Ruiz, two decently skilled fighters in the heavyweight division, two dangerous fighters in the heavyweight division. Now, Andrew Ruiz didn't look overtly impressive in his fight against Chris Arreola, but he's still no joke when it comes down to it. He's decently speedy. He's still getting used to the Eddie Reynoso game plan when it comes down to it. And that's also another example, by the way. You never know how a fighter is going to react or how they're going to fight once they get a new trainer. Many people thought that once Andrew Ruiz left Manny Robles, I believe was his name, and then went to Eddie Reynoso, everyone thought that he was going to be this much more improved fighter. Now, who knows? Andrew Ruiz just might be getting used to Eddie Reynoso's game plan. He just might be, starting to kind of like, how a quarterback might read a new playbook and it gets them like, takes them a little bit of time to get adjusted to it, getting used to the system when it comes down to it, as they so say. But I don't know. But personally, Andrew Ruiz made a smart decision stepping in there with Chris Arreola because he had not fought in a very long time, and you sometimes need to do that with a new trainer. You kind of need a tune-up fight, and I think that's what Deontay Wilder does. I don't think it's a very smart idea for him to jump in there with an Andrew Ruiz or a Dillian White next, because I don't really know where Deontay Wilder is going to be physically or mentally, or where he's going to be schematically. I don't know where he's going to be technically. It's going to be very interesting. Now, the thing also is this. I think that stepping into this direction, I think that you're going to have to fight probably one or two tune-up fights, especially one tune-up fight, and then face one of the top contenders. Then I would love to see him face a Joseph Parker. I would love to see him against Dillian White. I would love to see him against Andrew Ruiz. I think that we're always going to see a little bit of the old Deontay Wilder, and I don't think we're ever going to see a Deontay Wilder that has an A-grade skill set. I mean, the guy's about 35 years old when it comes down to it. I just don't know how many new tricks you can really teach him. And Deontay Wilder, it's no offense against him. I'm not trying to offend him or anything like that, but I just don't see him having an A-grade boxing IQ. So I'm not really sure how much he can really retain. We'll see what happens. Now, some people might find that offensive. I'm not trying to offend the guy. I just never seen, someone in Deontay Wilder that really was an A-grade technician or really was an A-grade person that had boxing IQ. I just never seen that. Deontay Wilder, now once again, who knows what he can retain, but Deontay Wilder for so long relied on pretty much just that one shot or really his type of style. Also, it's going to be a fact of the matter of, when times get rough for Deontay Wilder, will he revert to his old ways? And that might actually prove more troubling for Deontay Wilder than, once originally thought. I don't know. But, for those of us that watch UFC, there was a fight that happened a few years back, probably even more than this now. This fight was probably about 5 years ago. It was a while ago. But if you watch UFC also like I do, Daniel Cormier, who's one of the all-time great MMA fighters, he fought Anthony Rumble Johnson twice, because this is one of those fights to where I can think of this example. Anthony Rumble Johnson, in the first fight, he gave Daniel Cormier a tough time, but eventually he tried, I don't know if he tried to wrestle with Daniel Cormier, but Daniel Cormier, he eventually wrestled him when it came down to it, and then overall Daniel Cormier, I believe, was able to get a submission somewhere within the third round, even though it was a very tough fight. And the second fight, Anthony Rumble Johnson, I think he tried to strike with Daniel Cormier a little bit, but then, surprisingly, he actually tried to wrestle with Daniel Cormier. But what Daniel Cormier said after the fight, he said this. He said, when certain people are under pressure and when certain people are put really, on that hot seat, they kind of revert back to instincts. They revert back to their old ways. And that's kind of the thing here. If Deontay Wilder is under pressure, if he gets in another fight with Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury has him hurt, Tyson Fury has him up against the ropes, Tyson Fury has him in a very bad position, I think more than likely Deontay Wilder is going to go back to his old instincts of, okay, I got to try to hit this dude with the right hand and knock this guy out. I don't see Deontay Wilder ever mentally being the same fighter ever again after that Tyson Fury beating. And a certain amount of people may disagree. Now, once again, I'm seeing a lot of Deontay Wilder fans. They're very hopeful, and they're saying, oh, well, all Deontay Wilder's got to do is pick up some skills, and he'll be the best heavyweight in the world because he already got that power. Well, I think that that's wishful thinking. I think that that's looking at it optimistically. I think that that's a good thing. But when it comes down to it, I just don't know how much Deontay Wilder really is going to pick up. And that's really the problem. I don't know what to expect exactly from Deontay Wilder. And my prediction would probably be that I expect him to take a lower level fighter for his next fight, probably around a top 20, top 30 heavyweight for his next fight when it comes down to it. I expect him to look okay. I don't expect him to look great in his next fight, and there's going to be a lot of people that probably criticize Deontay Wilder. Now, if Deontay Wilder comes in this next fight and he looks very impressive, then great for him. Who knows? He might look like the same old Deontay Wilder where he basically just tries to knock the guy's head off. I don't really know, but when it comes down to it, we're either going to see one of those two things. We're going to see the exact same old Deontay Wilder in his first comeback fight, or we're going to see a completely different Deontay Wilder, one that's not overly impressive. So we'll see what happens. But either way, I expect Deontay Wilder to win his next fight, probably by knockout. Who knows? Maybe it might even go to decision because maybe Deontay Wilder really is going to try and get those new grooves in when it comes down to maybe, he'll take a fight and he'll say, well, this guy, when it comes down to it, he's not really a huge threat to hurt me or knock me out. Maybe I can try to try my new things here. I don't know. But when it comes down to it, I don't expect Deontay Wilder to look really impressive in his next fight because I expect to see more than likely some new things. It's either going to be that or we're going to see the exact same old Deontay Wilder. We're either going to see, in my opinion, Deontay Wilder that's trying completely new things, or we're going to see the exact old same Deontay Wilder for his next fight. So we'll see what happens. Either way, I think it's a good thing that Deontay Wilder is trying to adjust. I think it's a good thing that he's changing corners. If you had to ask me, what do I think are the odds of Deontay Wilder with this move, beating a Tyson Fury, beating an Anthony Joshua later on? Once upon a time, I think Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua would have been a 50-50 fight. With this corner change and with Deontay Wilder possibly, changing things up, I would probably favor Anthony Joshua 60-40 in a match with Deontay Wilder. Tyson Fury, to me, that's about an 80-20, 70-30 fight. And some people might view that as a little bit too high of a percentage. Tyson Fury, to me, man, he just has Deontay Wilder's number. I think Tyson Fury is he's got too much against Deontay Wilder. Like, if you created a fighter that was perfect for beating someone like a Deontay Wilder, their name would be Tyson Fury, because Tyson Fury, man, he's about 260, 270 pounds at his heaviest. He's got like an 85-inch reach. He can keep Deontay Wilder off of him. He's got a good chin. He's got great heart. He's got great belief in himself. He doesn't have bad power. He's got like B-grade power, but it can hurt you when it comes down to it, especially since he's so heavy. When it comes down to it, he's not the worst when it comes to speed. He's not that bad of an athlete. On top of that, Tyson Fury, he's very good technically for a heavyweight. He's also very maneuverable. He can fight very well going forwards. He can fight very well going backwards. I just don't see how Deontay Wilder, personally, in my opinion, I don't see how he ever beats Tyson Fury. And a certain amount of people may disagree, but that's just the way that I look at it. Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, that's always going to be a very interesting fight because those two kind of have a chance of knocking each other out. Anthony Joshua can get hurt, so Deontay Wilder's always going to have a chance to knock him out. Anthony Joshua can hurt Deontay Wilder, and all in all, he is a better boxer and more technical boxer than Deontay Wilder, so I would probably favor Anthony Joshua. But that's my opinion on this situation. I'm glad to see Deontay Wilder making some adjustments. I'm glad to see him making some improvements. Once again, I think he's going to still be going with these bullshit excuses that his fan base is going with. He'll still probably ride with it, but I think Deontay Wilder knows deep down that he just pretty much got his ass whooped. It is what it is, but it's a good thing that Deontay Wilder is starting to be, I think, a little bit real with himself and overall starting to adjust and change things. I think that that's a good thing because you need to adjust. You need to have some sense of realism in order to become a better person and to become a better fighter. So we'll see what happens. I hope the best happens for Deontay Wilder. We'll see what happens. But he doesn't have much time left. He's about 35 years old. We'll see what happens. I hope that he takes a tune-up fight. I don't think that heading straight into a third Tyson Fury fight would be the smartest idea. But if he has that leverage, then whatever. I understand. You want your revenge against Tyson Fury. And Tyson Fury, he's always said repeatedly that he doesn't know how many more years he's going to be fighting in boxing. It seems like after he might fight Anthony Joshua, that he says that he might be done. So I don't really know. But anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.